All right, what's going on, everybody? It's another week, another What the F happened. And there is a lot happening as we go into Thanksgiving and the holiday season. We felt like we'd come in and just ruin the week. Nah, I'm just kidding. We're not going to ruin the week, but we're going to read from news articles, economic reports, and all sorts of stuff, and just kind of give you an inkling of where we're going in the future, so that after all the holiday, let's just start with Thanksgiving. After your sleep coma ends from all the Thanksgiving food you eat, then you can kind of let reality set in. But that's for a short while, because then it's time for Christmas. So with that being said, here are some of the topics we're going to hit today. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about some of the facts of what's going on in real estate with the average age of buyers, first-time home buyers and repeat buyers. That will wake you up. We're also going to talk a little bit about the new industrial era. The end of free trade as we know it might be coming. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on overseas, which hasn't been in the news much, but you know what's been in the news? OpenAI, artificial intelligence. That company fired their CEO, then rehired their CEO a week later. We're going to hit that and a whole lot more. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back at it. Another week of What the F happened. We got some issues with some of the streaming. For some reason, we can't connect to a whole bunch of the Facebook pages and Facebook groups. We'll get that addressed next time. But for today, let's dive in. And it's me. We got the lazy Cash in the house, the famous cat that always shows up, never says anything, and just sits there and makes a mess. Also got Mr. Snaggy coming in from Florida. What's happening down there?
Hey, so I was just trying to fix the strings. Hey, good morning. How's it going? Yeah, so everything's good here in Florida, just getting set up for Thanksgiving. We, really wanted today to be all about the holidays. We spend a lot of time with friends and family at the holidays, sitting around the dinner table tomorrow, and people like to have discussions about what's going on with current topics. So hopefully we can kind of shed some light on what's going on right now, but more importantly than what's going on now, like what's going on in the future. And so we'll get into that today on What the F at 1 o'clock p.m. today on Wealth Webinar. We'll get a little more on the education side. So make sure you join us at 1 o'clock also. But just as an example, Chris, you're sitting around the table. Hey, so what's new? Oh, yeah, I just actually started, lending my money on real estate deals, and somebody's gonna be like, okay, well, why are you doing that? And well, actually, I'm doing it tax-free. I'm actually making tax-free gains. And we're like, well, how the heck are you doing that? And you can say, well, because, I'm making these great 12, 15% returns. And they're like, well, why in the world would you do that? And you tell them, well, because the stock market's probably going to crash. And they're like, what are you saying? And so these conversations can get pretty interesting. And it's a great way to share what you're doing in life, because everybody needs consistent returns right now. Things are going to be in turmoil over the next couple of years. So why not get set up? And now's a great time to introduce your friends and family and save their financial lives. So I know that was a rant, but that's what today's all about. So we're going to have some fun with it and see where that goes.
All right. So, there's some interesting things and there's so much stuff. I don't really always know where to start. So I'm just going to dive in. I don't know whether or not all of you know what geopolitical stuff is, or, just keeping it simple, but geopolitics. Essentially, I'm reading books, and that's all I'm ever doing. I just finished a book, Shoe Dog. Major props to Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, in writing that book. It is sincerely one of the best business books I have ever read, or actually I listened to it in my life. So if any of you are looking for a good gift to give to the entrepreneurs in your family, give them the book called Shoe Dog. I'm telling you, if they listen to it or read it, they will thank you later. It is the greatest book. And that message is not endorsed by Phil Knight or any of the Shoe Dog peoples, because I just like the book. So I felt like I'd do it. But there's another book that I'm reading right now, and I'm not through it yet. If any of you have read this, comment on it. But I'm about halfway through a book called The End of the World is just the beginning. And his name is Peter Zeihan, I believe is how it's Zeihan. So this isn't a book review day, but this book really got me thinking, because what it's talking about is the era that we're going into. And it's very easy to see what's happening right now on a geopolitical level. And you can just look at all the relations with the US and other countries. Some are strong, some are not. But, like when you listen to Ray Dalio when he's talking about, all the stuff he does with China and the US and who's going to be the empire, the real empire in the future. And, some would say, well, China looks like they're going to be, and others would say, no, it's going to be US, because really there's only two contenders, and everybody's like, oh, the dollar is going to be destroyed. Maybe, but it's just going to be a digital dollar. So let's get to what the biggest things are that this book talks about. But then it's just I almost say by fate. Like I typed in here, I said economic reports. And you know what came up? A report from The Economist. And it says warnings from history for a new era of industrial policy. The danger is not that American reshoring push fails, but that it succeeds. So now, whether or not that means anything to you, you'd almost have to do a history lesson. So real quick, if you go back to World War II, when the U.S. won the war, they literally could have taken over the world. I don't know if any of you realize that, but at the end of World War II, when the U.S. conquered, we could have taken over the world, literally. And most other empires or powers would have. They would have used that win to go through and take over the world, because we had the strongest military, we had the dollar, we had so much going for us in that, but we did not. What we did is the Bretton Woods. We basically went out and we said, we're going to build relationships with everybody, because we were smart enough to know that we couldn't maintain the control over every nation out there. We couldn't maintain control over Asia and Europe and everything else. Although we could have taken them over, it would have been short-lived. So what we did is built relationships. And essentially what we all know as free trade today. We know that there's free trade throughout the world up till now. Is free trade going to be a thing of the future? I think this is a really important topic. And I'd love some of you, whether it's TikTok or whether it's Instagram or whether it's YouTube or Facebook, I'd love your comments on this. What happens when free trade is no longer free? What happens when maritime shipments of goods and services, which we've all just kind of gotten used to just being, hey, the ocean is how goods and services come from Asia to the US or Japan to the US or Europe to the US and vice versa? What happens when that isn't free anymore? What happens when the tariffs make it so that they don't want to ship? What happens when we just don't want to do business with China? What happens when the US says we're no longer going to do business with China because of the things that are literally brewing right now? Okay, you've got all these things, whether it's Israel and Hamas or Russia in Ukraine, but like you got to look at the kingpins, US and China. And I guess you could really put Japan in there. So what this book talks about is, in the future, what's going to happen is there's not going to be free trade. We're at the end of that. And this article says that. It says, first line, free trade is almost dead, declared Morris Chang, the founder of TSMC, dampening the mood for the event in December to celebrate a milestone in the building of the Taiwanese chip maker's new fab in Arizona. So all I'm trying to explain is, in the future, we might not get our goods and services from China. We might not get our goods and services from other places. But here's the good news. When you look at China as being a reigning power, there's one thing that's going to make that so it fails, and it's population. So this is really important. And as we go into the holiday season, this is something that I want all of you lovebirds out there to think. Make babies. Make lots of babies. Because here's what's happening, okay, worldwide. And I'll talk about the different ones, but worldwide, you have a population issue. And some are like, yeah, there's too many people. No. Actually, just the opposite. There's not enough people. There's enough people, but a lot of those people are aging out of the workforce. Japan, as you probably all know, is kind of leading that pack. Their workforce that got them where they are to be a first world, country and all the things that Japan has done, their workforce is aging. And the new workforce, the younger, the kids or the teenagers or whatever you want to call it, there is not enough of them to take over and make up for what they're losing for the retirees. And the same thing is happening in China, a little bit after Japan. But in China, the population is a major problem. There literally is not enough people to continue the growth in China. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There just is not. So as this generation right now ages out of the workforce, the new generations coming up in China are not sufficient to allow China to grow or be a world power. Facts. Okay? That's what the book talks about. It goes into lots of detail, and I'm only halfway through it, but I want you to think about that. If China was to be the next world power, how can they be the next world power when they don't have the workforce they need to continue the growth that they have? They will literally crash and burn. And then that brings me to the United States of America. We actually do. We do have the population. The millennials, single-handedly, the most important generation in history, says this book. Millennials, and some of you are like, oh, hell no, no way. No way they're the most important generation. Baby boomers are most important. That's what some would say. They were the most important. The baby boomers were the most important. Now, between the silent generation and the baby boomers, those are the two wealthiest generations in history. And what is happening to the silent generation? They're passing away. They're aging out. They're definitely in the retirement years, the sweet years. But as they start to pass, and as baby boomers get older and age out of the workforce, happening right now, okay, they're going to also hit one of those things that we all will have to deal with someday, and that is graduation date, the day where we get to go to heaven or whatever you believe in, the day where we pass on. And when we do, what is going to happen is you are going to see in this country the largest wealth transfer ever in history. So when you look at the millennials and you start, and I've been doing a lot of videos that'll get me a lot of hate on YouTube, but it's all for a purpose. When you look at the millennials, like they're going to be the ones that inherit the majority of this wealth, the millennials and all the younger generations. So how are they going to handle that wealth? Well, if they plug into the existing systems, the existing financial education, the existing financial advice, well, God help us all. But if they can just learn how to take back control of their money, I think they've got a chance. But here's the thing. The millennials will fill a lot of the seats of the baby boomers. There are enough of them in other generations. However, if we stop having babies here in this country, we're going to have the same problem that China and Japan did, but not until at least 2050. So when you look at this, China is going to crash and burn by about 2030. Not too far into the future. 2030, China is going to start having major issues with growth because they can't support the growth with the amount of workers that they have. The U.S. can. You know what else the U.S. has got? The strongest military in the world and the strongest Navy in the world. Remember I mentioned shipping and free trade ending as per the book and also this economic report. If free trade ends, how are we going to get our goods and services? Oh my God, everything comes from China and there. No, it doesn't. You know what the most important thing is that the U.S. has that very few other countries have? The ability to produce food. And you know what we need to live? Food, shelter, right? So we've got two things that no other country has at this present point. We've got the ability to produce enough food to support not only the current population, but also a much larger population. You know what else we have? Unoccupied territory, land. We have land to support a much bigger population than we have right now. These are facts, folks. Read the book, study geopolitical. This is my first dive into geopolitics because I didn't even really fully understand it, but now I do. It's all about population, folks. So the country that has the biggest population of workforce is the country that will dominate in the future, which makes me really proud to sit here and say what we've always said, what me and Stephen have always said. United States of America is the greatest country in the world, the land of the free and the land of opportunity. And you know what? Reading a book like that, learning about geopolitics and all this stuff about population and how strong the U.S. is from the ability to produce our own food, the ability for us to produce our own natural resources. Now, if the dude is still in charge, well, we're probably not going to be very energy dependent or energy independent. But, that's just the dude. And, next year we'll determine where the dude goes and what happens with the dude and all that good stuff. But, I just think right now, looking at the United States of America, because most of you, not all of you, some of you on TikTok don't live here. And but any of you that live in the United States, this should be a warm and fuzzy feeling going into the holidays. This is something to be thankful for. It truly is. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, Stephen. Like, we're going into Thanksgiving, the time where we should be thankful for the things that we have. And, for all of you Americans, and every one of you, like, you should just be thankful that you live in the United States of America, the greatest country on earth. And I can sincerely say, after reading this book, I think we will be the strongest country in the world moving forward as well. Yes, we've got some problems. We'll work through those problems. Hopefully we won't end up in World War III, but, I don't know if any of you are following that stuff or looking, because it's nowhere in the news anymore. Notice how it was all in the news. Now it's nowhere in the news, which is when you should be concerned. When it's in the news, you don't really need to be concerned. When it disappears from the news and the only thing in the news every single day is, well, let's just look. What's been in the news for the top story in 3 days? OpenAI brings Sam Altman back as CEO less than a week after he was fired by the board. That is not the best news out there, but it's what they want to put in front of you. Stop watching the news. Start looking for the facts. Start reading books. Start studying history, because history will determine where we're going next. And I got to tell you, in the United States, it's probably better than anywhere else, but it's still going to be some really turbulent, rough times. Stephen, what do you have to say about any of that? Like, have you ever seen population in that?
No, it's, the U.S. supports a lot of foreign countries financially, and all of that leads into, exactly what you're saying when it comes to geopolitics and international affairs, especially. I saw this visualization. Let me pull it up. Just interesting to see. So this is just showing a visualization. Each dot represents $100,000 that's going to, foreign countries since 2001. And I won't play the entire video, but you start to just get an idea of just how much money we really do send to other countries in foreign assistance. And some of that is to help, prop up democracies and to try and help them get out of, the third world living conditions and, everything else that's involved. But, I could zoom in just a little bit. You can see what these countries are. Afghanistan, Israel, Iraq, Egypt, Ukraine, Jordan, Pakistan, Ethiopia. You can see some of these different countries through here. So it's just pretty fascinating to see just the billions and eventually trillions of dollars that we do flow into other countries, Chris. It's pretty wild. And then,
I always knew it, but I never knew it to the scale that you just showed and the scale that book talks about. I can't believe how much the U.S. alone supports all these other countries from free trade or with free trade.
And then on a slightly different note, but still dealing with foreign countries, talking about the Pentagon, obviously we have a lot of military affairs in other countries as well. So this just came out a couple of days ago. Pentagon fails its financial audit for the 6th straight year. So it doesn't give you that warm and fuzzy feeling that we're exactly doing things right all the time, but it just feeds into there's so much fraud out there. If you remember after 9/11, when there was like $6 trillion disappeared or something, and everyone's like, oh, I don't know. You hear those stories all the time. It's just like, what are we really doing here?
Let me ask everybody else, like, what happens when all of you fail your financial audit from the IRS? What happens, right? Not good, right? Not good at all. Oh my gosh. Hey, Stephen, let me go one more round on this population thing, because reading this book shed some light on some things. I don't know how to view it or how to look at it, but when you really, I don't care whether you go back to the Trump years or the dude years, looking at it, when you look at immigration, I know there's a lot of news and a lot of people, that talk about immigration and open borders, but there's an interesting dynamic in that book. And again, I'm not pro or con this. I'll just say I'm straight in the middle on immigration. One of the reasons why our borders have been so loose in Mexico, number one, the U.S. and Mexico have a really strong relationship politically, geopolitically. Like, it's a very strong relationship. We get a lot of goods and services. We ship a lot of stuff there. They ship a lot of stuff here. But when you think about population and workers in the United States of America, okay, so any of you that are from the U.S., born and raised here, chances are you're not doing the jobs that the immigrants are doing. I know when I was 14 years old, okay, I worked on a farm. I worked on it was a fruit farm, and we did corn and pumpkins and apples and all sorts of stuff, right? And I worked on a farm, and you know who I worked with? Mexicans. This is way back when. This is when I was 14 years old. I'm now 46. And all I can tell you is I felt like I was a really good worker. For a kid, I worked hard, man. I wanted to do more bushels of corn. I wanted to pick more apples, but I could never, ever beat my Mexican coworkers, ever. They outworked me by double. If I did X amount of bushels of corn, they doubled me. And it was just like, what the hell? So like what I'm trying to say, when you think, and I'm going to food again, because it is one of the single most important resources the U.S. has. And then we have oil and we have more natural gas than just about anybody. But when you think about food, who's going to provide the resource or the labor for the food that we need? Is it going to be Americans? How many farmers do all of you know? You know a lot of farmers? Because I don't know a lot, nothing like what it was back when I was growing up. There's a lot more farmers than there are today. So who's producing the food? Is it Americans? Well, maybe some, but could it be the immigrants? Could it be that the people that are coming over from Mexico are taking the lower jobs that the Americans don't want to do anymore? Because we've kind of, a luxury once observed becomes a necessity, I guess is how you say that. You know that term, Stephen, right? Once a luxury, now a necessity. So I think a lot of Americans have had that. Like we've had the longest boom cycle we've ever had, the longest, strong market conditions, bear market or bull market conditions that we've ever had. So a lot of Americans have kind of upgraded their lifestyles and they don't want to go back down. So who's going to fill those jobs that the Americans don't want to do? You guessed it. Immigrants, the land of the opportunity, right? It's been like that all the way, as far back as you go. People have immigrated here and moved to the United States because it is the land of opportunity, the land of the free, and they want that. And so do the Mexicans that are either legally or illegally coming in, and you can make a case for both. But without those loose immigration rules and laws, I'm not saying the open borders, but without them, there'd be nobody to fill the jobs that need to be done in this country, which would put us in a very similar position to a lot of these other countries that I was referencing. So is immigration bad? Not at all. It's actually necessary, vital for the United States of America's success into the future. 100% vital. So when you think about it, and I know we always say, oh, they got the borders open because they want votes. Maybe all that is true, but also now I look at it from maybe a different set of, with a different set of glasses on, and I'm seeing it as, all right, maybe there's a reason they're doing this. And I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, and I'm just posing the question out there, but is immigration bad? Is it good? Or is it just need to be more controlled? Do we need a border or a wall? What do we need? So these are interesting things, but Mark Perry brought that question up coming in from YouTube today. So I definitely wanted to hit on that. It's necessary. It's just a necessary thing in this country. So I don't know, Stephen, where do you want to go from here? There's a lot of, one other thing came in from TikTok from TikTok. This is super important. I want all of you to eat a lot of asparagus during Thanksgiving, especially you lovebirds. Asparagus. Okay, got it? Write it down. Asparagus. I need you to eat a lot of asparagus. Why? I guess it makes women more fertile. Maybe men too. You know that, Stephen?
Oh, we'll build that population this Thanksgiving.
Dude, we gotta get on this asparagus. Maybe we should even invest in asparagus and then really just start saying, hey, you want to have children? You want to be more fertile? It's asparagus time. Anyway, great information coming in from TikTok. I just thought I'd lighten the mood a little bit.
I got to ask, what was going on about 9 months ago? Because I over a handful of friends, probably over half a dozen by this point, that have had kids within the last week or so, or expecting in the next week or so. So whatever was going on about 9 months ago, that's something was happening. Anybody else pregnant or about to have kids? I'm just curious if it's
anyone
in my life, but it's just bizarre. I'm telling you, so many right now. But while they're responding on that, I just got to show a real quick. So the dude had his birthday, 81st birthday this week. And it just made me think of this image right here. Sorry, I just had it up. Okay, so you guys all remember this meme that has always been going around. We use it all the time when we're talking about the stock market, right? The house is on fire, the dude just sitting there sipping his coffee and whatnot. Everybody knows that meme, right? Well, leave it to the dude to meme himself in real life, because this photo of him was posted for his 81st birthday. And tell me that's not the same dude right there with the house on fire, Chris.
Dude, are you serious?
They made
for
meme
Instagram and TikTok.
It's
the dude kind of if you can't see me, he's kind of got his arms out. There's a cake in the middle I don't know how many candles there are there, but I think they tried to fit
81.
all 81 candles and they lit them on fire. It looks like the house is going to burn down. And the prior one was the picture, that famous meme cartoon of, like, I don't know if it's a dog or what it is, sitting there, and the house is burning behind him. And he says, "It's fine." It's so
Anyway,
perfect.
it's like, I don't
So
know.
perfect.
I mean, Biden is, digging his own grave with everything, with all his policy and everything that he's done to this country so far. But his comms team and his campaign team is not doing him any favors with things like that being posted. But nonetheless, that just gave me a good chuckle.
That's hilarious. Let's see. So, a couple of comments coming in here. I just want to see if there's any good. One person said, "No country is perfect, but we're still the best country in the world. Please don't take it for granted." And I wanted to call that out because I want to just take a moment as we go into the holiday seasons and Thanksgiving to give thanks to all of our vets, all of our current military and service men and women. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for doing, in some cases, just the ultimate sacrifice, giving the ultimate sacrifice. And just to what this person said, Juan Santizo 558 on TikTok, don't take it for granted, because the freedom we enjoy in this country is not free. And if you don't like things going on in this country, if you want to bitch and moan and burn flags, then you need to get out of this country and go somewhere else. China will absolutely take you in. They need population, so I'm sure they'll take you in. But some countries don't want your ass. Switzerland, they're not taking you in. So if you don't like the U.S., if you want to sit there and bash the U.S. and you live here and you enjoy the freedoms that we have, somebody literally needs to walk your little ass over to a port, put you on a boat or a plane, and ship you off to another country, preferably a communist country, so you can actually realize what freedom is. And then you can come back, and then maybe you can give the ultimate sacrifice and you can fight for freedom that you lost because you didn't realize what you had. Thank you for your comment, Juan. That's a good one. And I think that's a really important one as we go in. So, folks, here's another little thing, totally off topic. But if you're ever walking through an airport, going in, in a mall shopping, and you see somebody, a serviceman or woman or a vet or somebody wearing a Vietnam hat, maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe they're walking with a cane, because, stop and just say thank you. You realize how far that goes? Because I don't think they hear it enough. I really don't. I take every opportunity in airports to literally just stop people. Even in, you're walking down and I just stop them and they're kind of taken back. And I just say, thank you for your service. And that's it. And then I just continue walking on. Your words matter, folks. Your actions matter even more. So just give thanks where thanks is due. And it's due in a lot of levels. And don't ever, ever, ever hesitate to just get down on your knees, put your hands together, and thank God for what you have. And also thank God for all the men and women who are fighting for your freedom and for the life you have. Because, again, it's just not free. It's just not. Somebody said, buy artificial meat. No, thanks. No, thanks.
I mean, one story that I saw just come out in the last, this week, kind of in relation to what you're saying about the U.S. and the freedoms that we have. It's pretty wild to see, when politicians and states try and take freedoms away. And, we saw that heavily during COVID-19 and the pandemic, and, a lot of knee-jerk reactions and different laws put in place and different mandates, things of that nature that just completely took away people's freedoms. I mean, you saw, famously the surfer by himself on the beach getting arrested, and, how many people lost their jobs for, not complying with vaccine mandates and things of that nature. And so, we like to think that we learn from our mistakes. You can go back and you can look and say, okay, there was mistakes made. And so just kind of two points to that right now. First off, I'll give the Army a little bit of credit. So it came out this week that the Army is completely changing its tune on COVID vaccines. And this has been circulating around, and the AP covered it as well. So Army recruiters are now boldly advertising that no vaccine is required. So you can see that prominently at the top of the flyer right there, vaccine not required, because they have lost a lot of people because of that. So, it's good to see, the Army recognize that. We saw it happen with different, companies first and, things like the NFL and stuff finally. And now we're seeing the Army come around. But then you look at independent states in the country, which is what makes this country great, is that each state is individual and can set its own rules. But sorry to always have to pick on New York, Chris, but, this came out this week that,
you can pick on New York all you want. New York is a shithole. It's a
New
beautiful
York
state.
Governor Kathy Hochul had put a and I won't show the article, but she had had made a mandate that basically during COVID, they made a law that they're allowed to take people that have a virus such as COVID, not necessarily COVID, any virus really, and they can actually not only mandate they are quarantined in their home, but they can actually take them and put them in temporary housing and basically quarantine camps. I mean, they didn't call them that, but that's, essentially what the law says. And, it was fought in court and they blocked it for a while, but just yesterday or 2 days ago, it was overturned by a New York appellate court that says New York does have the right to do that. Now it'll be challenged again, but it's like, looking back, we aren't China. We're not like, you can't just go in your house, Chris, and say, hey, your family has this disease. We're going to take you out of your home and stick you over here. And that's crazy to me. And just the fact that they're even trying to fight for that. Like, what are you people doing up there in some of these states that just want to have all the control? So just kind of interesting to see those different angles on what's going on right now.
It is crazy. There's a couple other things I want to hit, some other things here that came in. One of them is the current system's broken. And then over here, America is good, but the people in America hate one another, which actually, and he was laughing. That's on Instagram, but that's not really laughing. Like, that's the truth. And when you really think about like Americans and you think about what's happened really, like largely under the watch of the dude, like just think about the divide in this country and why we have the divide. Why do Americans hate each other in the words of, add one calculated, could anyone ever just sit there and point their finger and say media? Because that's the only reason, right? Like the divide in this country, the divide, and it was all over the place. But, if during the pandemic, it was the black and, the divide of black and white. And then after black and white, there was the divide of vaxxed versus unvaxxed. And it's just been, and then it was blue versus red. It's just the media has literally orchestrated the biggest divide this country, I think, has ever had since the Civil War. And I do preface the Civil War. Like, why did the Civil War happen? Because of divide. Why would a civil war happen in this country? Because of divide. Where does the divide come from? The media. So how do we avoid that? Love one another. Shut the fucking news off. Stop watching the news. Stop believing what you see. Like, literally just go about your business. Love thy neighbor. It's in the Bible, folks. Like, it's just it's such a simple thing, but you're right. Like, the country right now feels like it's being gutted from the inside out because there's really no threats. Like, the one thing that's unique about the U.S. that is in this book is it would be very unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely that the U.S. would ever get attacked on U.S. soil. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it's super unlikely. If you look at the Navy that we have and the capabilities of our military and the capabilities of the satellites and the missiles and all of the surrounding areas where we could get attacked, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be very difficult for any other nation to try to conquer the U.S. on our soil. Okay? Very hard. So when you think about that, what would be the best way to destroy the U.S.? From inside, right? It would basically be what's happening since we've been, kind of under the dude, what's happening. And that's the only way. And it's scary to think about that, but the history books tell you exactly how that could happen. And all you need to do is go back to a little known time with a little known guy named Hitler. And I did say little because he was short. And exactly how it happened in Germany is exactly what could happen here. And that could be the demise of the U.S. And that would probably be the only way the U.S. could get conquered is from the inside. That'd be it. So I think everybody just, when you're thinking about all the things that you hate, don't hate people because they vote blue or red. Don't hate people because they're vaxxed or unvaxxed. Don't hate people because they're black or white. Just love. Just stop the hate. Stop the divide. And we'll probably be just fine. It'll be turbulent times, but we'll be just fine. But if we continue this divide, if we continue to allow the media and politics to divide this country, that will be the only demise of the U.S. But with that being said, I want to take this to one additional thing, Stephen. And there was one other thing that said here. I also want to go back to the immigration stuff. And I know Dan Wynn came in and he said, as anti-immigration talking heads, please look at who have built this country better and better and who are on the street and who are the street beggars. I don't need to say any more than that. Dan sort of laid it out. I mean, like, think about that. Just think about that. When you look at the biggest countries biggest companies in this country, who runs them? Who built them? Immigrants. Almost largely, like that's one of the beautiful things here. So when you hate on immigration, yes, I know, like, there needs to be rules and there needs to be legal immigration. So the borders are a bit loose right now, if not very loose. But just remember who built the United States of America. And I hate to say it, it wasn't, and I say this loosely, it wasn't Americans or people born on this soil. It was immigrants. So who's going to build it in the future? Is it going to be the people born in the U.S. or is it going to be immigrants? I don't know. Can't predict the future, but that's a really important thing to think about. So, and that kind of goes into the divide. Don't allow yourself to be swayed into divide and hating on other people from other countries just because of the war, in Israel and Hamas. So, like, I see that firsthand here in New York. We have a lot of friends that are Middle Eastern, and we talk to them on a regular basis, and people definitely are treating them differently right now. It's sad to see, but that's exactly what we're talking about. We see it day in and day out. But Stephen, let's switch over because we talked a lot about immigration and that. Do you want to hit Valentine's Day?
Yeah, that's to my question earlier.
Lots of asparagus came in on Valentine's Day, I guess.
These comments I don't really understand. The dumb Trump can destroy America. Like, if we look back, I mean, things seem to be a little bit better back then. If you look at the polls, I mean, something like 56% of Americans right now say they're in a worse financial position. 60% say they don't feel confident about the future. Like, we had peace in the Middle East with Trump. We had a vaccine, good or bad, that was ready to get the country back on track, was completely spoiled. I mean, I could go on for days. It's just wild how people can make comments like that. We won't get into that, but
yeah. Hope had a question about if the Fed was dissolved, banks go bankrupt, would it affect insurance companies? It would affect everything, but the Fed isn't going to be dissolved. Sorry, I kind of wish it would be, but that one's not even worth talking about. Globalists are causing divide, not Biden, and not, I think that's supposed Trudeau. They are only puppets carrying out orders. Yeah, probably agree with that 100%. But let's talk real estate here for a second.
Yeah, but that's not a way to give them a pass. Like, you're the leader of the greatest.
There's no pass. I mean, there's no passes at all.
Let's get that straight, Brad. Like, come on. The buck stopped at the top, and they're literally the top. So
that's true.
Give them a pass.
I'll agree with the puppets.
Morgan, just so you know, it was 12 hours ago because that's when I had scheduled this about 12 hours ago, and so it's probably why it's showing on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about real estate. This is a pretty interesting thing, and I'd never looked into this. So now all of you, that are in real estate, or that you're, no matter who you are, like, you think about real estate, right? It's one of the things that has created more wealth in this country than probably more wealth in the world than any other industry. It's always been real estate. But when you think about real estate right now, I know a lot of people I talk to are saying, oh, real estate's going to keep going higher. The price of real estate is going to keep going higher because of demand. Yes, but you don't understand supply and demand. If you think real estate is going to go higher, you clearly have never studied economics. I don't mean to call you out, but you don't know a damn thing about economics if you think real estate is going to keep pushing higher and higher in the near future. In the long term, yes, but in the near future. And here are a couple things and a couple reasons why it won't. Contrary to demand, okay, there is a lot of demand for real estate. But this article came out, and I wanna kind of, everything that I've been saying today has largely kind of led up to this. So I want you to kind of remember what I talked about earlier, aging populations to where we're at now and the largest wealth transfer. So I'm just going to read a few things. So the average age for trade-up home buying rose to 59. Is there a limit to the housing bubble? This is an economic report done by an economist, okay, whose name I'll leave out just because everybody judges everybody by who it is. So let's just say it's a very well-known economist. So the average home purchase price has gone up from $75,300 in 1983 to $422,550 as of November 21st, literally a few short days yesterday, actually. I think, I don't even know what day it is, but that's not important. Yesterday. Yep. So that's a 5.6 times increase, right? So that's the same for a modest suburban home. Now, let's just kind of take that same ratio, but let's compare that to income. Okay. I want all of you to think about that. So housing has gone from 75,083 to 422, 5.6 time increase. Okay. How about income? Because you would think if housing goes up, income should be somewhere close behind, right? Stephen, wouldn't that make sense?
Yep.
Housing price goes up, but due to inflation and appreciation, then income should keep pace to a relevant point, right? Well, check this out. So when we look at it, the truth is that the annual median income has gone from $24,580, okay, and that is in 1983, to $74,580 current times. So that means that incomes have only gone up much less. Let's see, the housing has gone up 1.8 times more. I thought there was a stat in here, but there's not. So, but just that's a very small increase. So housing has literally almost 2x'd, not 1x, 2x'd incomes. So what does that mean? What did that do? Well, if I come over here and I look at this chart, okay, there's an actual chart, and this is a chart that talks about home buyers' ages, okay, and there's two different charts that he looked at. Repeat buyers, that would be people that are buying a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth house, okay, in their lifetime, and then there's another one which is first-time home buyers. So now when you look at that and you would think, okay, what is the average age of a first-time home buyer? I don't know. How old were all of you when you bought your first home? I was 23. How old were all of you when you bought your first home or started thinking about buying your first home? Well, the first-time home buyers in 1980, let's see, I'll try to read this right. The clearest and simplest sign of the strain of the housing bubble is the age of first-time home buyers. It rose from 29 years old in 1980, so I was an early adopter of buying a house, to 36 years old in 2022. Think about that. The average age, Stephen and folks, is 36 years old for a first-time home buyer. 36. Like, okay, I know people are having babies younger than that. I know people are getting into their careers younger than that. So what does that mean? That means that they're primarily renting up to the age of 36. And right now, as of today, and when this chart was done, it's 35 years old. That is your age of your average first-time home buyer. That's nuts. We went from 29 years old to 35 years old. Now, this is the scarier one, okay? Repeat buyers. The age back in 1980 was 36 years old. That's when somebody would have bought their second house, okay? It's almost the same age as when people are buying their first house now. Today, 59 years old. 59 years old, as the chart says. So repeat buyers are 59. So when you think about that, like that means that first-time home buyers, they can't afford their first home until their kids are in grammar school in most cases. You can't afford your best home until after or close to retirement. Like we work our whole lives and we can't afford like our dream house or quote unquote our best house until 59 years old by the numbers. It's nuts. 30-year mortgage rates have rose from 2.65 in January 2021 to 7.79 the end of October. And we still haven't seen a crash. So when you think that real estate is going to go higher, how? Where's the money going to come from? Okay. If rates stay elevated higher longer, like Jerome Powell says, how are first-time home buyers going to be able to buy homes at the current pricing? The answer is they're not. Unless mommy and daddy pool up the money for the down payments, because I did a YouTube video just the other day about millennials. Millennials have little to no savings. Fact. Little to no savings and record debts, record student loan debts, record credit card debts. Millennials lead the pack in debt and little to no savings. So the ones that could be buying the first-time homes, the ones that could push the price of first-time homes or housing up, are indeed millennials, not baby boomers. Okay. That's what you have to really look at, on top of many, many other things. We're at the end of a cycle, like real estate, things are going to slow down. And when things slow down, people lose jobs. When we enter a recession, think more and more people lose jobs. When you lose a job and you don't have a job, will a bank give you a mortgage? Absolutely not. So people's ability to buy the homes at the current pricing are vanishing. Facts. So if they're vanishing, what has to happen to the price? Just supply and demand. Who can tell me what has to happen? What must happen when we're in a situation like now to the price of real estate? If any of you said it must go down, you are absolutely correct. Now, for some of you who are like, yes, I've been waiting for this. It's a buying opportunity. But some of you are like, oh shit, should I sell my property? I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do and what not to do, but you can just look at the facts. Like, this article woke me up a little bit now because it just gave me more fuel for the fire, I suppose, is a way to say it, because I have been saying that real estate is going to go down, which is why I've sold almost every one of the rentals that we've had. People said I was crazy. Like, I just sold another two yet last week. We just closed on them. One is actually closing next week because of the holiday, but one closed last week. Like, I have, I think, 4 or 5 properties left out of 91. Some people would say you're an idiot. Well, stupid is as stupid does. I have then taken the money that I've made from all those rentals being sold. I paid my fair share of taxes. Just want to make sure you all know I pay my fair share. Keyword, fair share. We'll hit that one another time. But then what did I do? Well, I went to a little known website called privatemoneyclub.com, and I started lending my money, just like the good old bad boys at the banks. Started lending my money, and I'm making 12 to 15% more money lending it in first lien position than I ever made owning those rentals, which I usually would average 4 to 5% net. That's about what I was making on rentals, 4 to 5. And today I'm making 12 to 15. Which one would you want? So I just don't see real estate prices going higher. I see them.
And the other thing that a lot of people say, Chris, is, well, I don't want to sell because now I'm going to have this huge tax liability and tax bill, selling all this property at once. And, obviously you can avoid that by not selling and watching them, prices come back down. But there is an alternative, which is holding the paper, creating a note, becoming the bank, and seller financing that property. And, we've done that. I've done that with my dad on a couple of properties, and the income monthly is greater now without all the headaches, without having to do all the maintenance, and without having to do all the work and everything. The income is actually greater, and and without having to pay that big tax bill by selling all at once. And additionally, one of the advantages of rental property is getting that appreciation over time. But these properties are at the top, period. And so there's no more room for appreciation there. So why not unload them now, one way or another? I'm just saying there's more than one way to skin a cat. Everybody comes up with excuses.
Leave the kitty cats alone.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? There's other ways to do things. So just get educated a little bit. And there's a lot of solutions out there to these issues, but that's what it takes. You have to want to do it. You have to get educated. You have to devote some time and energy to it. But if the future is important to you, it makes a lot of sense to do that.
Yeah. And somebody said I should have kept the rentals, but I hear that a lot. Oh, you should have kept the rentals to build your wealth. But see, when somebody says that, they don't know the whole story. So I am building wealth at a much faster pace than when I had real estate. You see, real estate, I'm not saying is a bad place. And I'm not saying any of you that have rentals should just openly sell your rentals, especially if you don't have a plan. See, I had a plan. Somebody a long time ago, a very, very good friend of mine now, who was a mentor of mine and somebody I looked up to, said the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. So when you say I should have kept the rentals to build wealth, yeah, that's the long-term strategy. But you see, here's what I did. I sold the rentals at a nice profit. I took the profit. Now I lend that money out. I make a really good interest rate on that money. I take all that money from the interest and I roll it back into my private banking system. And then I continue to recycle it and recapture it, recycle and recapture, draw a circle. My money's in a constant state of a circle. It never leaves my control. And every time it goes around, think of it as Monopoly. Every time I pass go, I make more money. And my money never, ever stops earning from me. So when you talk about building wealth, I'm building wealth with very little risk, very little risk. And I'm compounding that wealth at a rate that is hard for me, even me, to comprehend that is even possible. So when you say I should have held the rentals to build wealth, I assure you I'm building wealth. But I'm building wealth doing things like lending money, doing things like buying Porsches. I'm sorry, I don't mean to like bring that up, but like you would think buying a Porsche is a stupid investment, but you see, I get all the money back for every car that I buy, drive, and own. So that Porsche that I buy, although I enjoy it, and although I look at it as an investment because I do think they will go up in value, kind of like a real estate, a real estate would, it doesn't produce me income, but you know what? I'm paying myself back with interest. So cars and my primary house and land I'm buying, because I am buying raw land. Okay. And then private loans I'm doing and other investments. But you know what my number one investment is, Stephen? What both of us could say this. What is the number one investment both you and I do? What is it in?
That could go a lot of different ways, but I investing in ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of it, and education.
Yeah, that's it. We're investing in ourselves and we're investing in our businesses. So when you invest in yourself, you're also investing in your business because you're investing in your dream, which nobody else controls except for you, unless you let somebody else control your dreams, which is a whole nother topic. But by investing in ourself, we're also investing in our businesses. The growth and the wealth that will be created from investing in something that was once a dream and now a reality will far surpass any wealth I'd probably ever build in real estate. And then here's the other thing. When real estate heads back down the other side and deflates and depreciates, I might jump back into real estate. I'm not going to be doing the work anymore, but I'll find somebody that's really good in real estate and I'll basically partner in those deals. I'll provide the funds for their deals and I'll benefit on the next cycle. But there's always a time to hold them and a time to fold.
All right. So it looks like Chris disappeared here. So before that happens, or until he gets back, we'll keep it rolling here for a few more minutes. Got about 10 more minutes to go. So to Chris's point on real estate, it's one of the cool things that we have been investing in and growing and building, and it's become a big part of not only how we, invest our own money, but also has provided a platform for a lot of other people to be able to take a similar path through education is the Private Money Club. And the Private Money Club, as a lot of I have it on my hat right here. Become the bank, become your own banker, with the Private Money Club, PMC. And, the Private Money Club is a platform that connects real estate entrepreneurs, real estate investors, active real estate investors out there, finding deals, developing real estate, doing flips, buying rentals, Airbnbs. It connects those that have money. And so, a lot of people, I mentioned it earlier, when you're sitting around the Thanksgiving table, if you're talking about what you're doing, hey, I'm lending money, I'm doing it so tax-free. Well, how are you doing that? Well, you can take an old 401k, an old retirement account. We can convert that, doing a direct transfer to a self-directed IRA. And while we're in the middle of that, we can convert it into a Roth in a lot of cases. And once that IRA becomes a Roth IRA, all that retirement money, everything you invest from that point forward is now going to be tax-free growth. And so the taxes have already been paid in a Roth. So all that money you're making is all tax-free wealth. And when you look at the comparisons, when you grow wealth tax-free, as opposed to growing wealth where you're paying taxes regularly, or even at the end, it's going to get you to your goals a lot faster. And there's a lot of people that don't understand that as private individuals, we can take our retirement accounts, we can take our savings, we can take our money, and we can become the bank by lending it exactly like the banks do on these real estate deals, where I'm now able to grow my wealth at 12 to 15% returns. In this case, using a Roth, completely tax-free, or even more, depending on the deal. If you get into some kind of partnership or JV, joint venture deal, we can grow our wealth even more. And then if you look at investing into businesses, Peter Thiel, one of the original investors in PayPal, he was well known for making billions of dollars tax-free in his Roth IRA because he took money from his Roth and he invested in PayPal. And he turned something like a couple $1 million into billions of dollars, or trillions even. Somebody can tell me the exact numbers. I always forget them. But so there's definitely ways to do that. And it's all legal and it's a beautiful thing. So when I was joked around earlier about sitting around the Thanksgiving table, this is stuff that we should be sharing with our friends. We should be sharing with our family. Chris and I took it to a whole nother level where we decided to share it with everybody. All across the world. And that's why we put out this show, why we do Wealth Webinar Wednesdays, why we do so much content on YouTube, so we can share this knowledge that just so many people don't understand. There's literally hundreds of millions of retirement accounts in the United States of America, and less than 4% of them, less than 4% are self-directed. So 96% of people are just doing what everybody else is doing. And when we look at how many people actually become successful and can retire the way that they want to in this country, it's less than 5%. So those numbers kind of make sense. You know, those of us that are controlling our wealth, that are doing these alternative investments and styles. And one of the things that I really like about Private Money Club is the fact that there's so many successful people on there lending money. There's so many successful people borrowing money. But one of the things that I don't like about Private Money Club currently is I have no way to track that. So something cool, I just got a text message. Maybe he's listening right now, but I got a text the other day on Monday, I think it was. And it was like, hey, Stephen, just so you know, I was watching Money Club Mondays last week and you had a borrower on. I really liked the deal they were doing. So I connected with them after Money Club Mondays and I decided to lend to them. So they worked out the terms, they negotiated how long it was going to be for, how much they were going to get paid and what that looked like. And everything for the borrower made sense. That was on Money Club Monday. That's a premier borrower in PMC. And for the lender that sent me that text message, and he said, I'm letting you know this because I'm sure there's so many deals that you help kind of present to people and get in front of people that you don't know they actually do close and do happen. And so thank you, if you're watching, for sending me that text, because it's really cool for me to see that when I don't always get to see that kind of thing. And so just thought I'd make that up. So Derek over here is asking, am I going to Gainesville? No, I'm not going to Gainesville. Actually taking the family. We're going to a little beach resort and going to hang out for a few days with some family and friends and stuff like that. Chris Bizub, yes, sir. Good to see you, man. Hopefully you're rocking and rolling. I know you always got some good deals going on. Let me get you back on Money Club Mondays, by the way, Chris, if you're listening. Let me know what's new. Let's get you out there. What's up, Duck V? Happy Thanksgiving to you. Aaron, yeah, Aaron, love what you're doing. You know, I know you use PMC platform quite often. And, you know, Aaron had posted something on Facebook, how he was out there pushing a polishing machine, redoing some floors in one of his properties. And it's just kind of cool to see that, you know, something fulfilling about doing that. And I know you were saying that on the Facebook post, so that was cool to see there. So it's just, let's see, a couple other things going on in the news this week that we didn't have a chance to hit on here in the last couple minutes here. Elon Musk back in the news this week for filing a lawsuit against Media Matters. So Media Matters, just by their definition, Media Matters for America is a web-based, not-for-profit 501c3 research and information center dedicated to comprehensively monitoring, analyzing, and correcting conservative misinformation in U.S. media. So Media Matters goes out there and they find news articles or stories or what companies are doing, and they try and basically call them out, and they write countering arguments. And then what they do is they show this to advertisers, and a lot of time advertisers will listen to Media Matters and will pull their advertisements from various companies and corporations and platforms that they feel don't align with their, you know, values, the advertisers. And so Media Matters was all over the news this week because they had released this story that claimed that X, you know, formerly Twitter, that X was placing ads next to anti-Semitic posts. And so a couple companies, Apple and IBM and a few others, said, okay, we're going to pause our advertising with X because we don't want our ads ran next to these various posts that are anti-Semitic and all this various stuff. And so X came out and said, listen, that's not happening. You know, we fixed this last year, a big problem last year. And, you know, these advertisers are not performing. And so X went in and showed the actual data, and they showed how Media Matters actually went into X, created these new accounts, followed a couple handful of other accounts that were very anti-Semitic and that would populate this kind of content. And then what they did is they sat on the page and they refreshed it over and over and over again, something like 13 to 15 times the amount of refreshes that an average user had, with a lot less actual followers that an average user had. And by Media Matters manipulating the way that X's algorithms work, they were able to populate one or two different impressions out of millions of impressions, millions and millions and millions of impressions. They were able to duplicate this one time on their Media Matters account where an anti-Semitic post popped up next to an Apple or IBM advertisement. And Media Matters used this as their basis for putting this story out against X and shutting down advertising with these major advertisers with X. So Elon Musk said that's absolutely absurd. That's absolutely ridiculous. So they filed a lawsuit on Monday morning going after Media Matters and the manipulation that they did. So just kind of dirty to see that kind of thing happen. You know, an organization like Media Matters that a lot of very prominent corporations and companies follow their lead and listen to, openly just completely fraudulent, allegedly fraudulent activity that they're doing. So we'll see how some of that comes out in this lawsuit as things progress. So that was new in the news this week. And then the last story was Sam Altman, who was one of the original founders of OpenAI, was fired by the board last week. And just yesterday or this morning, I guess, was actually now rehired by OpenAI's board. So a lot of turmoil continuing to happen in the AI space. And I'll have to learn more about that story and bring you more next week. I'm not fully versed in it, but very interesting to see. And of course, Elon Musk came out with his alternative because, you know, Elon was an original founder with Sam Altman in OpenAI originally and was kind of booted, and there's some disagreements there. So Elon went to do his own thing and just launched in the last couple of weeks what he calls Grok. It's Grok, right? Grok, his own AI platform now as well. So we'll see kind of how AI continues to develop, and it seems to be getting better and better and better, and just something to definitely pay attention to with everything as we move forward. All right. So with that being said, we're at the top of the hour. We missed Chris, but for the last 10 minutes there, but hopefully he has a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here. The last thing I will share, let me see if I have it, is I just want to be very thankful to all of you for being here week in and week out, for all of our clients, all of our students, everyone that's become friends on this platform. Happy Thanksgiving. And of course, like always, we fully support all of the first responders, military, and those of you that, you know, on Thanksgiving, while we take a couple days off, people like police officers that are still out there protecting us, people like our military that are out there still protecting us every single day, that don't have the ability to take a couple days off with their family and be together. So while we're sitting around a Thanksgiving table with family, understand they cannot. So an extra special thank you to everybody that keeps us safe out there and protects us and our freedoms here in the United States of America. So with that being said, we do hope all of you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We'll see you guys here next Wednesday on What the F Happened. And of course, we'll be doing our other shows today as well. Wealth Webinar, 1 p.m. Eastern, and Ask Me Anything at 4:30. So with that said, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.